In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we hear a lot about Joseph Smith and Brigham Young, but we don't hear much about the third president of the church, John Taylor. And that's a shame because the guy had a wild life. Let's talk about him. First things first, did you guys know that John Taylor was born in England? We've had a British prophet. He was born in 1808 and was the second oldest out of 10 kids. He grew up in the Church of England but converted to Methodism at about 16 years old. In 1832, John followed his family and emigrated to Toronto, Canada. In Toronto, he and several others would get together to investigate the doctrines of the Christian religion as contained in the Bible. Through their investigations, they became convinced that Methodism lacked true priesthood authority. John subsequently retained his membership but lost his office in Methodism, which wasn't a huge deal because he didn't believe the church had any authority anyway. Enter stage right, my man, the Latter-day Saint apostle, Parley P. Pratt. Why was Parley P. Pratt in Toronto? Well, because in a blessing given to him by Heber C. Kimball, Parley was told,
"Go to Upper Canada, even to the city of Toronto, the capital, and there thou shalt find a people, prepared for the gospel."
But it wasn't all butterflies and rainbows at first. John had heard various rumors about the Latter-day Saints and did not give Parley a particularly warm welcome. Eventually, though, he was allowed to preach in John's study group. After Parley's preaching, John said to the group,
"We are here, ostensibly in search of truth. Hitherto we have fully investigated other creeds and doctrines and proven them false. Why should we fear to investigate Mormonism? I desire to investigate his doctrines and claims to authority. If I find his religion true, I shall accept it, no matter what the consequences may be, and if false, then I shall expose it."
John and his wife Leonora were baptized soon after on May 9th, 1836.
I can't believe he was British.
He was British!
And Canadian.
Yeah! John presided over the church in Canada for a time, and then in 1837 he was called to the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Once John Taylor was converted, he stayed converted. The dude was all in from beginning to end, come what may. When even Parley P. Pratt faltered, John Taylor was there to help him back. A couple of years after his baptism, he was preparing to preach in a town near Columbus, Ohio. Some fellow Latter-day Saints tried to stop him because they'd heard that some of the townsfolk were planning to tar and feather him. John went anyway. He began his preaching by passionately commending the congregation's patriotic ancestors who fought for the rights and liberties offered in America. He then verbally thrashed those who wished to trample on those freedoms by planning to tar and feather him. You can pause and read what he said. He tore open his vest and continued,
"Gentlemen, come on with your tar and feathers. Your victim is ready. And shades of the venerable patriots, gaze upon the deeds of your degenerate sons. Come on, I say, I am ready."
No one budged, and John went on to preach for another 3 hours or so. John Taylor was with Joseph and Hiram Smith on June 27, 1844, when they were murdered. He didn't have to be. He wasn't a prisoner. He knew the risk of danger and even asked Joseph if he could go back to Nauvoo to gather some men to break Joseph and Hiram out of jail, but Joseph refused. The mob came. John ended up being shot once in the left thigh, once below the left knee, once in the left hip, and once in the left forearm. If you'd like the more graphic account of John's injuries, you can pause and read how B.H. Roberts described them. Needless to say, John survived and healed. In 1846, he served a mission to England and made it back in time in 1847 to help lead 1,500 plus Latter-day Saints across the plains to the Salt Lake Valley. He accepted another mission call to Europe in 1849, serving in France and Germany. While there, he helped supervise the translation of the Book of Mormon into French and German. In addition to being an eloquent speaker, John was also a skilled writer. He was the editor of the Times and Seasons, The Wasp, and the Nauvoo Neighbor in the 1840s. For a few years in the 1850s, he published a periodical in New York called The Mormon to counter Eastern rumors about the saints in the West. My favorite thing about this publication was the scroll featured on the left side of the header, which just says, "Mormon Creed, mind your own business." You see, the hot topic of the day and the next few decades was plural marriage. Like many others, John was initially repulsed by the teaching but came to accept practice and ardently defend it. Researcher John Lewis Taylor noted that John had at least 16 wives. The more well-known 7 bore 34 children, and with one adoption, he had 35 in all. 22 sons and 13 daughters. Apparently, he did not live in an intimate conjugal relationship with several wives, serving only as guardian. guardian. John Taylor became the third president of the church in October of 1880, a couple of years after the death of Brigham Young. In April of 1882, at General Conference, John warned the membership that a storm was coming. That storm was the passing of the 1882 Edmunds Act, which made polygamy a felony and cohabitation a misdemeanor. Soon, Latter-day Saint polygamists were being hunted down by federal officials and arrested. Many polygamist men went into hiding. John sent some families south to start settlements in Mexico beyond the reach of American laws. Some of those Mormon colonies are still around today, though they of course no longer practice polygamy. Ultimately, in 1885, President Taylor himself had to leave the iconic Gardo house and also go into hiding. He ran the church and communicated with his family largely via letters. His ability to lead the church was severely limited during this time, but at the end of the day, he helped keep the church's head above water during a very trying time. In 1887, John passed away at the age of 78 while still in exile. The guy was stalwart, faithful, and apparently a pretty good singer. He was succeeded by Wilford Woodruff, whose life sort of played out like a Final Destination movie, but that's another story. Check out this video while you're here, and have a great day.